we are honored to be sitting with an iconic figure in media, in the arts, and in the world of Fred Rogers, who we recognize today. This is Dr. Francois Clemmons, singer, actor, and he was Officer Clemmons in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood starting in 1968. Tell folks, and by the way, we'll show some footage of Officer Clemmons while you're talking. Who was he and why did he matter so much, sir?
Well, I was the first black person to have a steady role in children's television. Fred was a visionary, and I think he knew how important it was to have representation of all races, not just white people. So he invited me to come on the show and to sing. That's what I am. I'm a singer. And he thought up a role that I would do as a helper. They talk about a helper a lot. And there were some problems, some racial problems that he was trying to address in his own way. In our culture, Dr. King was very active at the time, and there were some assassinations, Robert Kennedy, and he thought that these things needed some way of expression among young children. They were aware of what was going on, and he was totally concerned about the effect it would have on children. And he felt it was best for them to know that the neighborhood had people of all races and all colors. And we were friends in our private life as well as we were on television.
You said he was a mentor of yours.
Yes, he was my mentor in the sense that he encouraged me to continue my operatic career, to continue my auditions, my studying, and the traveling that it involved. It was very difficult, I tell you very honestly. And many times I called him on the phone and he gave me encouragement. And you have to take language lessons and coachings and voice lessons, and it's very expensive. And I couldn't have done it had he not stuck by me the way he did. He saw to it. Times when I was discouraged, he said, no, you've come too far. You've done too much, Francois. You can't stop now. And he was also, I say, my biggest fan. He came to hear me New York City Opera and Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and Cleveland, Chicago. Whenever I sang, I'd look up and there he was sitting out there in the audience.
When you were Officer Clemmons on that show, there's a scene in the documentary. Make sure you check out the documentary on Fred Rogers. There's a scene that was shown that really struck me where Fred Rogers, you were one of the big helpers in the neighborhood, and he was washing your feet.
First?
Oh, I don't want him to get wet.
Right.
Oh, that feels great.
Right here.
When you're a policeman, you do an awful lot of walking, and sometimes your feet get tired.
Right.
That feels better already.
Good.
A big, important, significant scene because?
Well, Fred was a Presbyterian minister. He was ordained. And so he often referred to Scripture without specifically mentioning Jesus or Peter or Paul or any of the particular Elijah or whoever the characters were in that particular scene that he was fashioning in a way that could relate to children. And one of the things he was showing is how people of different colors can relate to one another and how they can love each one another and care about one another and show. In fact, he wrote this song, there are many ways to say I love you. There are many ways to say I care about you. Many ways, many ways, many ways to say I love you. And the bells are accompanying me.
Because it's noon here in Vermont.
How about that?
And everywhere on the East Coast. and by the way, I love that. They're playing, that's happening while you're singing.
Yes, I think so.
You're used to all kinds of things when you're performing, right?
Yes, I am. You have to keep going singing, So he wrote that for me because I was on the show and he wanted to show how Peter and Jesus and he was a Christian, but he didn't want to beat people over the head. But his nature, he was humble. He believed that people who loved you served you, and that this was a way to show that he loved me, and he wanted people to know that was important. And it didn't matter what color I was or who. No, it did not matter at all. And so the idea of going through those motions helped people to understand the scene that we were mirroring had to do with the swimming pools in urban centers around America, where some of the white people did not want black people in their swimming pools even though they were paying taxes like everybody
And
else.
Fred Rogers, you just broke down all those barriers. And what message does it send to all those children watching?
It told the children, Mr. Rogers is not a racist, he's not prejudiced, and he survived. Maybe it's okay for me to be like that too. And that message was very important.
This whole theme of this conference that the Turrell Fund is putting together, a Turrell Fund Day for our children here in Shelburne, Vermont. Did you think much about when you're on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood? And do you think a lot about now? How much do you think about now? Infants and toddlers and how they are developing or not, and the impact that you had on them and we need to have on them now, particularly in the media. I know it's a loaded question.
Well, I have to tell you that it goes much further sometimes than I'm aware. I've lived here for 22 years in Vermont. I love Vermont. There are wonderful people here. But as I've traveled around the country, particularly since they've done the movie Won't You Be My Neighbor, I think it's a wonderful job that Morgan Neville did.
That's the Fred Rogers movie.
The Mr. Rogers movie, and it's about his life and his work. I just think that's wonderful. And they've invited me to come and do guest appearances where we talk, Q&A.
You're great in the film, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much. I love doing it. You know, I just had 2 strokes, so I was surprised at how it came out so well. But a lot of it had to do with the direction and what he did and his touch. He has a wonderful touch. But as I've traveled around America, I've been surprised at the effect of the people who came to see the movie 2, 3, and sometimes 4 times. Now, I've seen it about 40 times, but I'm in it. You know, it's a very different approach. But I'm telling you that the people have come up to me and they've been very heartfelt, very sincere, that they need this kind of massaging in our society and encouragement.
Love.
Yeah, and love, absolutely. And I mean, if hugs would kill you, I'd be dead. But it's like medicine. It's been just wonderful to have that kind of a response. I'm so grateful.
Well, we are grateful, Dr. Clemmons, that you have taken the time to be with us. There are a lot of demands on your time. You join us here in your new home in Vermont. We're at Shelburne Farms. If you look around us, they say it's an old barn, but it is. Barn doesn't do it justice, so we'll take some shots of it. And we wish you nothing but the best. And as a kid in the 60s who was watching Mr. Rogers and saw you and was influenced by you, I want to say thank you for the millions who are watching right now who you helped. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you for inviting me very much. Thank you.
Think Tank with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 30 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of Think Tank with Steve Adubato has been provided by the Turrell Fund, supporting Right from the Start NJ, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, the Russell Berry Foundation, RWJ Barnabas Health, PSE&G, Wells Fargo, and by New Jersey Resources. Promotional support provided by ROINJ and by NorthJersey.com and Local IQ. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.